Hi Math 8 students, today we're taking a look at volume of cylinders, cones, and spheres. To determine the volume formula of a cylinder, multiply the area of the base, which is a circle, with its height. So if you took a flat circle and stacked a whole bunch of them on top of each other, you would get a cylinder. If you take the area of that flat circle and multiply it by however many you stacked on top of each other, you would then get the volume of all those stacked circles. So volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, because the pi r squared is area of a circle and h is the height of the cylinder, or the number of circles stacked on top of each other, if you want to think of it that way. So we're going to try finding the volume of a couple cylinders together. So here we have, find the volume of each cylinder in terms of pi and to the nearest whole unit. Let's do the odds together. All right, so volume, as shown in the last slide, is pi r squared h. We have to plug in our givens. So if we take a look at the cylinder, we see that the radius is 3.5, and I know that's the radius because it's only the distance halfway across the circular base, and the height is 9. So we do volume equals pi times 3.5 squared times 9. Now, 3.5 squared is not a number that most people know off the top of their head, so you can use your calculator. Do 3.5 squared, and we get 12 1/4. Remember to always evaluate exponents first. Then we have volume equals 12 1/4 times 9. So we can go back to our calculator and just multiply by 9. And we get 110 1/4. And I wrote that first because now I have my answer in terms of pi, which is the only way you can get an exact volume. So we have 110 1/4 pi inches cubed. I know that for volume it's inches cubed because if you look back in the problem, you did 3.5 times 3.5. So that's 3.5 inches times 3.5 inches. So there's inches times inches. Times the 9 inches adds in another inches. So it's inches times inches times inches, which is inches cubed. So now, as it says in the directions, we want to round that to the nearest whole number. That's going to be an approximate answer because we're rounding. So now we take our 110.25 and multiply by the pi symbol, press equals, and we get approximately 346 inches cubed. Now, I didn't round up. I left it at 6 because after the 6 was 0.4, or 0.3 rather, so we do not round up. We only round up if it's 0.5 or higher. All right, so hopefully you didn't find that too confusing. You're just putting numbers into the calculator and substituting into a formula. So let's try another one together. Number 3. So here we have a cylinder again, but it's laid on its side. Don't let that confuse you. All right, so this 36 is the height, and the 4.8 is the diameter. So keep in mind, if you're given diameter, you need to cut it in half. So the radius is 2.4 millimeters. So now we use our formula just like we did in the last problem. We have pi r squared h again. We plug in our givens. So it's pi times 2.4 squared times 36. So volume is pi times 2.4 squared. We evaluate the exponents first. And that's 5.76 times 36. Then we multiply the 5.76 times 36, which gives us 207.36 pi millimeters cubed as our exact volume. And then we're going to round to the nearest whole number by multiplying by pi and pressing equals because we don't want 3.14 as our answer. That wouldn't make sense. We get about 651 millimeters cubed. All right, so that's a cylinder. We're going to move on to another type of three-dimensional figure now. So here we're going to use the diagrams below to determine the relationship of the volume of a cylinder and a cone with the same size base. So you see here in number 5 that we have a cone inside a cylinder. Okay, both the cone and the cylinder have a radius of 6, and they both have a height of 5. Okay, so we take a look at the cylinder's volume. We notice that's 180. Take a look at the cone's volume. We notice that's 60. And maybe you guys see right away that if you do 180 divided by 3, you get 60. That makes sense because 18 divided by 3 is 6. All right, so that tells us something about the relationship between a cylinder and a cone. Let's make sure it exists in the other one as well. So here, again, here's my cone inside my cylinder. And here the cylinder is 192 pi centimeters cubed and the cone is 64 pi centimeters cubed. So let's see if we do 192 divided by 3 if we get 64. And we sure do. So that means that if we divide 192 pi by 3, we'll get 64 pi, which is the cone's volume. So that tells us that the relationship between a cylinder and a cone is that it is a third of the volume of the cylinder. So a cone's volume is a third of the volume of the cylinder. So we can use the same formula for volume of a cylinder, but multiply by a third. Okay, so that's what that problem shows there. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. So we're going to find the volume of each cone in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth of a unit. All right, so we have volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. They give us the diameter of 6, so that means our radius is 3 centimeters, and the height is 15. So we have 1/3 pi times 3 squared times 15. Evaluating our exponents first, we have 1/3 pi times 9 times 15. So now we want to get rid of that 1/3. So we can multiply the 1/3 by either the 9 or the 15 to make this easier. I want to do 1/3 times 9, that's 3. So that's pi times 3 times 15. So if you're able to do that, that's going to make your life a little bit easier. And then 3 times 15 is 45. So in terms of pi, this is 45 pi centimeters cubed. Then we multiply 45 by pi. Remember to press equals, and we get that the volume is approximately, remember we went around to the nearest tenth right now, 141.4, because the 7 makes the 3 round up. So 141.4 centimeters cubed is our answer for the volume of that cone. All right, let's take a look at another one. Oh, I lied. I only did one of them with you. So now we're going to move on to another one. All right, so the formula for volume of a sphere is volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Calculate the volume of each of the following in terms of pi and to the nearest hundredth of a unit. So this time we have a sphere, so there's no height involved. It's just 4/3 pi r cubed. So we're going to fill in only the radius. So that's volume equals 4/3 pi times 6 cubed. So volume equals 4/3 pi times 6 times 6 times 6, or clear it, 6 to the third is 216. Now we have 4/3 here, so remember the trick to multiply by a fraction is to divide by the denominator and multiply by the numerator. So we can do 216 divided by 3 times 4, and we get 288 pi inches cubed. Now we multiply by pi, and we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, so it's going to be approximately 904.78 inches cubed for this sphere. All right, so that's when you have a whole sphere, but sometimes you're going to be given a hemisphere or a half sphere. So in this case, we have to keep in mind that since it's half as a sphere, we need to multiply by 1/2 as well. So we're going to alter the formula a little bit. We have 1/2 4/3 pi r cubed for a hemisphere. So now we plug in our radius, which is 3. Always make sure it's the radius and not the diameter. So that's 4/3 pi times 3 cubed. So that's, again, volume equals 1/2 4/3 pi. And hopefully you remember that 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. Then we can multiply by 4/3. 27 divided by 3 is 9, and 9 times 4 is 36 pi. And then cut it in half, so our volume is 18 pi inches cubed. Now, again, that's the exact volume of this hemisphere. We're going to round it to the nearest hundredth by multiplying 18 by pi. And we get approximately 56.55 inches cubed. Okay, so that's using a lot of formulas. Again, you're just plugging numbers in. You can use your calculator if you need to. You guys are going to finish the rest of the notes on your own. Make sure you check in with me so I can verify that you got all of the answers correct before moving on to today's exits, tickets, and homework.